Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau, and we are in the throes of our room by room organizing. It is 2023. We are all in that mode of we're going to get fit. We're going to get organized. We're going to get our budgets together. And so we are here to help you. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind you of a couple things. So if you're not already subscribed to our show, make sure that you click the subscribe button. If you prefer to watch us on YouTube, we are there as well at This Organized Life podcast. So head on over to YouTube where we record every episode. And if we're ever showing, demoing stuff, it's great because then you get like a live visual. So you can always check that out. And then if you are not new to our show and you know that every week we ask our guests what their favorite book is, well, we compiled a reader list from 2021 and 2022 of all of our book requests. So it's a big list and we organized it in Goodreads. So if you head over to Goodreads, if you're a reader, head on over there and follow This Organized Life podcast, and you can have the entire catalog of every book that has been recommended for 2021 and 2022. And there are some great reads. And actually, some of our guests have come from that episode. From that list, because I tend to buy all the books that our guests recommend. And then if I like the author, I reach out to them and then they wind up on our show. So definitely check that out. Okay, so now back to today's episode. We are talking about one of the biggest hot buttons that a lot of people feel in their houses, and that is closets. Now, closets is kind of a big, broad stroke. You've got your primary closets, you've got kids' closets, you've got hall closets, linen closets, but no matter which one you're talking about, most people at some point or another find that closets are a pain point for them. And so we have a great guest that is joining us today. So joining me is Heather Bifulco, and she is the founder of Tidy Style, and they are based in Boise, Idaho. And she and her team, and we'll obviously link up to it, you'll check out their Instagram. They do some incredible work and transformations in all spaces of the home, but specifically closets. And so she's a mom. She is a business owner. She knows how life can get. And so I said, Heather, come on our show and let's talk all things closets. So without further ado, let me welcome Heather from Tidy Style to the show. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me, Lori.
I am really excited to have you joining us. And at the time of this recording, we are actually in the throes of holiday season. So I'm thinking of my own closets right now that are like crazy bursting. But the time this episode drops, a lot of that dust will have settled. And now people are staring at the realization of like chaos. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Heather Bifulco, and I started Tidy Style back in 2016. And before that, I was in sales and marketing in kind of the corporate world. I did that for a little over 10 years, and then got married, was expecting our first child. When she came along, I left my sales and marketing job to stay home with her for a little while. Then very quickly, my son came along. And so I was kind of full-time stay-home mom, and I loved every minute of it. But by the time it was like, I guess 2016 was when my daughter was starting preschool, and my son, well, I think she was already in her second year of preschool, and my son, needless to say, I was starting to have a little bit of time on my hands, and I am not one that lets the grass grow under my feet. And so I started thinking about what I could do from an entrepreneurial perspective and what that might look like. And I realized I really have like one talent, and it's organizing. And I didn't know if that was even a viable business idea at that time. This was before, I'm not sure it was before Marie Kondo wrote her book, but it was certainly before she was on Netflix. It was before professional organizing or home organization became like such a Pinterest worthy ideal. It was just kind of, and it was way after you started. So I can't imagine what the landscape looked like when you started. But when I started, it was like my biggest obstacle was, how can I get people to understand that you can hire somebody to do this? But anyway, that kind of just gives you the rundown of how and where I got started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because it is such a different landscape of the industry. And that's one of the things that I love about it, is that most people nowadays know that this is a profession, know that this is something that, and it's more mainstream, like hiring a personal trainer, or, just part of wellness and self-care. I mean, I try to, that word can get a little overplayed, but yeah, back in the day when I was doing it was pretty much reserved for either the elite people, like elite, richy rich, or hoarders. It was one of those extremes. It wasn't like busy moms or busy single people who just don't have the time to do this, or just don't have the skill set to do it. So I think, it's great to watch and have a front row seat of the evolution of this. And I love that people like yourself and other people listening out there can take their talents and skill sets from other careers, other walks of life, even being a stay-at-home mom, being, organizing the things that are in your home and turning that into a viable business. So I love that. I think it's awesome. So one of the things that you have on your website that I absolutely love, because whenever I go to anybody's website, and I've said this on our show before, but just fun fact, it doesn't matter if you're an organizer or I'm buying a product from you. The first place I go is the About page, because I just want to learn about who I'm working with, who I'm buying from. It's just like my own little quirk thing. And so I was on your website before when I was researching for the show, and you have a quote on there, and I don't want to misquote it, but basically the gist of it is that you love being organized, but not having your life revolve around organizing. And so again, I apologize if I butchered that, but I love the message behind it, because it's so much of kind of what we teach here, which is the purpose of being organized is so that you have the freedom to do other things. So I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that and maybe your philosophy about organizing.
Yeah, so I always say organization is your foundation of wellness. It's not something that you should be doing on a daily basis. I mean, you do you. That's the thing. It's like, for a lot of times people assume you're a professional organizer, you must be a perfectionist. Well, yes, I am, but I'm trying not to be. And what you said before about not having it be a way of life, that's very important to me, because I have children, and whether you have children or not, you certainly want to be living as full a life as you can be. And sitting in a closet, color coding your clothes is not that. So I just say, get everything organized so that the maintenance is really simple. And that's a big principle of how we do things at Tidy Style. It's not about organizing to Pinterest perfection. It really is about organizing to you and your family's lifestyle, and what's going to suit you and what's going to be easy to maintain. Because nobody wants to be organizing on a daily basis. It's like, let's get it organized and then let's move on and bake some sugar cookies or whatever that is.
Yes, because that was the other thing you said that you like. I was like, she says she likes to eat and she likes cooking. I was like, oh my God, I like to eat too. And I like to eat with a glass of wine around in my hand, but that's a whole other.
Sounds very cozy.
Exactly. So you bring up a good point, because obviously this episode is about closets. So we kind of want to dig into the meat and potatoes. And I obviously have my theories from doing this for a long time, but I'm wondering what your observations are about closets. Because I think for a lot of people, now I'm going to shut up and turn it over to you. People overcomplicate what has to happen. And so I'm wondering kind of what your take is on closets in general.
Yeah. So again, at Tidy Style, we're all about simplifying and making life easier. That's the whole point behind what we're doing with getting people's spaces organized. And with closets, I think the number one mistake we see is, well, of course, people have too much stuff. I mean, that's the big secret. It's if you have the right amount of stuff for your space, being organized, staying organized isn't going to be that big of a deal. But that's harder for some people than it is for others. And some people have really large walk-in closets and they have space of plenty, and other people are really challenged and they have to have their closet do double duty. It also has to store their suitcase, and it also has to store their kids' crafts because they have absolutely nowhere else that stuff can go. So we recognize that not everybody has the space that they actually need. But I think one of the biggest things that we see as far as mistakes, organizational mistakes, I know that's not exactly what your question was, but we see it time
it's fine.
again, is walking in and seeing people bought the wrong type of product for the space. That happens so often. And it's really sad because a lot of times before they call us, most of our clients have taken a run or 2 or 3 at the space themselves. And they just can't understand why it just never gets to that happy place where it actually just feels good and it feels like, okay, it's organized and now I just maintain it. And I think a lot of that has to do with just bringing in the wrong type of product. We see a lot of times people will bring in like big canvas bins or really tall and deep, and no organization happens inside those bins. And we always tell people, we're sorry, like maybe we can repurpose this in another space of your home, but it does not work well for a closet. And so that's one thing we see a lot. And also just, again, back to having too much stuff for the space. So if we can employ a guest room closet as an off-season closet or something like that, or okay, where else in the home can this item live because it doesn't make sense here. We're really trying to distill down to just those items that really feel natural in a master closet, primary closet. Those things would be your clothes, your shoes, your accessories. Beyond that, those other items that are stored in there we work really hard with our clients to find another space for those things. We never like to leave our clients at the end of an organization with like a pile of things to put away or a to-do list. We really like to walk them through all those things, but it's the same thing, whether it's a pantry, it's a closet, it's a bathroom. Let's distill down to the categories that make sense in this space. And you will be so much happier in the end with the organization if we can get those things that don't really make sense in that space out and into a space where they do make sense. So that's kind of the starting point.
I love it. And I want to kind of piggyback off of that because I don't know about your experience, but one of the things that I see is specifically in closets is a lot of sentimental things that people assume because it's clothes, it should live in a closet, but it really isn't stuff that they're in kind of what I call active rotation. It's nothing. It's like either it was something that we wore for, a holiday party, like it was a costume or something, or this is something that was something from high school or had some other sentimental reason. You're not using it. You're not wearing it. You want to keep it. We're not even talking about stuff that you want to get rid of, but it doesn't need to live there. And right. I see, we talk a lot about emotional clutter here and just figuring out, is this something that we want to keep, but then also does it need to live in this space?
Exactly. Because that is like, prime real estate, your closet, your hang space. Most of us don't have enough shelving in our closet. So it's really like we have to be smart about what we choose to home there. And categories such as sentimental, memorabilia, all those kinds of things. If we have to keep them in the closet, we typically at that point look at how can we maximize the vertical space, meaning, okay, maybe we can stack some pretty boxes on the top shelf that have your memorabilia. So they're stacked, they're maximizing that vertical space, which often goes unused, but we're still keeping those things that are important to you. Because as much as we love when we have a client, we love to say, our client got that gold star award for getting rid of stuff. I mean, we love when our clients are like all about like getting rid of stuff and editing down to a really happy amount of stuff for this space. A lot of people do have emotional attachments to things. I mean, most of us do, I do. And we certainly don't want to push people into getting rid of things where there's a true attachment or memory associated. We all have enough stuff in our spaces that we can get rid of that really aren't going to break our hearts. We don't need to get rid of things that are going to break our hearts to do so. So then, yes, how do we store those things so that, yeah, they're safe, they're, protected from dust or whatever it is, but they're not in our prime real estate of the space.
I love it. And it's so funny because that's exactly the phrase that we use here as I talk about prime real estate in any space. I'm like, this is your prime real estate, people. Is this really where you want to be? You know, if you use this turkey roaster once a year, does it need to be in that prime? I know we're not talking about kitchens, but like I use that. That's one of my catchphrases here.
Yeah.
Now, I actually have a question for you as a mom with young kids, because your kids are like 8 and 10. Mine are grown. So now, do you have boys and girls, one of each? What's your?
I have a 10-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and God bless me with one real neat little boy and a very, very messy little girl. So,
well, I have 2 girls. And so, your challenges might be a little different in that there's probably not as much hand-me-downs because you have different gender kids. So I'm sure there's some things, maybe some outerwear or whatnot, but a lot of the stuff you're not necessarily saving for the younger sibling. But for me, I know, and for a lot of my, clients and a lot of our listeners, they run into this situation where they're like, okay, I can't get rid of this, or I don't want to get rid of it because I know I have another one coming down the pike. So if they don't have the luxury of space, now, obviously this goes without saying, people, if you are fortunate enough to have a garage, an attic, a guest room, a basement, wherever it is that you could bin up these things and put them elsewhere, that's going to be the natural, that's going to be the natural go-to, right? You want to keep it out of there. But I'm sure you see with clients that hand-me-down factor come into play, where it's what I like to call it, like the grow clothes, where the kid's not in it yet, but where do you store that? And I'm wondering if you could maybe provide some tips and strategies for our listeners out there that might be faced with that and go, I don't have a lot of room. What do I do with this stuff?
Yeah. So my kids are 8 and 10, like you mentioned, and they're smaller still. So they are not really accessing that top shelf of their closet on a regular basis. They can't reach it. So that is a perfect place we found for a grow into bin and a grown out of bin. I'm constantly throwing things into that grown out of bin. And when that bin is full, I'm not adding another bin. This is another thing I see a lot. It's like, we're not overgrowing the infrastructure that we set up for the closet. We set up an infrastructure for the closet and a system that works in that closet. We're not adding more hangers. We're not adding more bins. It's set up. It's a happy amount of stuff for that space. Once that grown out of bin is full, then I take it to the donations, the wherever I choose to donate my stuff. And then I empty it and bring it right back in. So it's just kind of part of our household upkeep, is like emptying those bins and keeping them in the rotation of the closet.
Yeah. And it's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking, I'm not necessarily one to have like hard and fast rules in terms of like one in, one out. I know that works for some people. But I do love that you reference, like, we have kind of the amount of hangers that we have. We know what our space can comfortably hold, and we don't really deviate from that. And I think that is a simple yet hard practice for people who aren't in our business. Like, if you're not used to working that muscle, setting those boundaries can be a little bit challenging. And I'm wondering if you could just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, so first of all, when we're going through our process with the client, we're taking everything out of the closet, we're sorting everything into categories. We find that there's a mindset shift that happens when everything is out of the closet is cleaned, and now it's like, okay, what's worthy of going back into my space, versus, people usually try to just kind of go through and cherry pick things out to get rid of. It is so much more effective and efficient to do the edit when everything's out of the space. At least that's what we find. And so then you're asking yourself, what's worthy of going back into my space? At the end of our process, and we've got everything put together in the closet, we do have a designated number of hangers. And of course, we always like to leave our clients with room to grow, because people do like to shop or they'll get new things. It's just inevitable. But we've been told so many times by clients that it has really helped them be more intentional with purchases that they make once the organization is done, because they love how it feels. And it really is, for us, it's all about that feeling of walking to your closet and it's just like, oh, it feels good. It doesn't feel cramped. It feels like everything can breathe. I can move hangers from left to right and I have the freedom to do so because things aren't jam packed in there. And so that's super important to us. And our clients love so much how that feels when we're done with doing what we do, that they want to maintain it. And so it may not be a one in, one out rule. I kind of find that rule very limiting. I really like to look at it as like a seasonal thing. Okay, we're in fall, winter. At the beginning of the fall, winter season, I went through my closet and purged out some of the spring, summer things that I know that I'm not going to want to wear next year. That frees up my closet, frees up 5 or 6 hangers so I can buy a few new fall, winter things. And that's kind of how I approach it. But it really is about just changing your mindset. And that happens once that organization is done and it's done right. And you have that feeling and you want to hold on to that feeling, you will become so much more intentional about what you're going to purchase and bring into that space. You're not going to buy something because it's on sale, or you're not going to buy something because you got a gift card and you want to, it's burning a hole in your pocket. You're really going to be thinking about what needs do I have? And is this item going to fulfill that need? Or is it just a 14th jacket and I've already got 13 and I don't need another? So I really am proud of the fact that once we're done with our space, our clients tell us again and again that has helped them become so much more intentional and thinking through before they make purchases.
No, I love that. And another thing that I want to touch on, because I think this is also relevant for clients, at least again, stuff that I see and I experience, is you talked about products and people going to try to solve problems with products. And I think you'll agree that there are absolutely some products that really do help the situation and other ones that are really just a Band-Aid, and we have to get more intentional with kind of like our mindset.
Right.
Now, I am also a believer of leaning into what works for you. And this comes with, not to get too granular, but this comes with like folding versus hanging, where I find, and I do a lot of work with families and with kids, or especially teenagers, and finding that path of least resistance to get it in there that's going to work for them can make all the difference in the world. So I don't know if you have experience with that, because again, your kids are younger, but getting them involved in it, if somebody is like, I like to hang everything so I can shop my closet, great. But other people are like, I just like to fold it and put it away and have everything in cubbies or shelves. So to me, again, not a right or wrong way. It's whatever's going to be the best for you. And I was just wondering what your kind of thoughts were on that.
I love talking about this stuff. I get really excited about this because it really is, like you said, it's really individual to our client or the person in their closet. We have a saying at Tidy Style. I'm sure I'm not the first one that said it, but we say it again and again and again. Visibility equals accessibility. We want people to be able to see what they have, because if you can't see what you have, the chances of actually wearing it or using it are really slim, and then it's just wasted space. So when it comes to kids, I believe that they really respond well to being able to see all their things. And so that means we hang up, if we have the hang space, we're hanging like every shirt that they have, and reserving the fold space for like pants. We have baskets for underwear, a basket for socks. We really don't leave anything open on a shelf in a closet, whether it's a kid's closet or an adult closet, other than maybe the exception of these 2 categories, denim and sweaters. Those are things that we find that can hold their shape and can kind of be stacked in a pile of 3 or 4 and hold up well. But anything outside of denim and sweaters, we think kind of ends up just looking messy before long. So those things will be items that we would end up containing. But anything that we can hang, especially in a kid's closet, will hang. So we really love when we go into a closet and there's ample hang space to work with. And as long as we have a cohesive hanger, I think that that's like the first thing that we look at doing is what can we hang?
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, hangers, getting like streamlined hangers. I don't care if you want all plastic hangers. I mean, I'm not a fan of them, but if you want all, but having the same hangers makes the difference. Don't you think, Heather?
Oh my gosh. I tell people all the time, it's like, well, people are like, is it really like, does it really?
Yes.
It's like, you know what? You could have a very organized closet and the right amount of stuff for the space that you have. And if you have a bunch of mismatched hangers, when you open the door, it's going to read chaotic and you're going to just see all that visual noise and you're not going to ever get that feeling of like, oh, I feel so good in here. The cohesive hangers is such a game changer.
It really is. It's probably one of the most inexpensive things. Like if people, like I've been into houses where people are like, I don't have money to do a custom closet. I don't have money to do built-ins. I'm on kind of a shoestring budget. And I don't know about you, but obviously editing first, that's going to be the thing. But then I'm like, if you are really on a tight budget, but you want to just zhuzh it a little bit, streamline your hangers. That
for sure. Yeah. And those plastic hangers, I mean, some people love them because they love the feeling of just being able to pull something right off and it slides right off. So it's like, but if they're all the same, like white plastic hanger, it just looks pretty and it's calming and you don't have, again, all that visual clutter. So I'm a big believer in that. And that's kind of the first thing that we do. And once we get everything cleared out of the closet, we've walked our client through for the edit, then we're going about switching the hangers so that they all match. And it just makes the hugest difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it. And just, you did say it, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but that corralling things aside, like you said, not having things loose on a shelf, that is like organizing hack 101, people. And that goes, if you hate folding a fitted sheet, guess what? Put your sheets in a bin or a basket and label them, whether it's by kid or by size. Like these are our full sheets, these are our king sheets, or this is, your kids' names. Put them in there. And again, they don't have to be like folded perfectly crisp without a whatever, because it's all like streamlined in a bin or basket. So again, I know we're focusing on primary closets, but this is like for any space.
It's so true. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, yeah, denim can kind of hold its stack if you need to stack it versus hanging it, and sweaters can too. But beyond that, people are like, how am I going to maintain this? It's going to be so much work. No, if you have, well, I go into my daughter's closet right now. She has a bin for her. It's activewear. Mm-hmm. It's like that stuff is so slick. It really doesn't fold well. And she just throws it in there. But guess what? When I open her closet door, it still reads neat and tidy and everything still has a designated home. The maintenance is easy. Even if that stuff ends up just getting thrown in the bin, the way that we feel when we open that door is the same. It feels organized and put together, and it gives you that calming, soothing feeling. Whereas if we didn't have that bin there and it was just on the shelf, it would read a chaotic mess. And so the bins and baskets in a closet are kind of a game changer if you don't have enough built-in infrastructure to contain all the different categories.
And the other thing that it does also is it's what I call the ease of retrieval, which is really how quickly can I get it when I need it? And that's really what, you talk about, the visibility and accessibility. It's the same thing as when I tell people you want to know where to go find it. So even if she's got her, jog tops or, workout pants or whatever, her activewear kind of just thrown in there. If you're like, I need you to go get your stuff, she knows she's got one bin or one basket to go pull in. And so she's retrieving it quickly. She's not losing that time. It's not, causing all of this other added stress and chaos. And so that's what we talk about, where I don't want to see people wasting time folding and this is, again, if you like to fold and that's your thing, that's great, but it's less about that and more about giving you the freedom to be able to enjoy your space, have more time and margin in your life by how can I create a sustainable space that I don't have to like worry if one little thing is out of line.
Yeah. And that's what we say. We're all about making your life easier, not harder. It's not about setting up a system that is going to be really painstaking to uphold. It really is about setting up a system that's just going to make your life day in and day out easier, simpler, and again, achieving that feeling of when you walk into your space. Because I can't tell you how many clients of ours have said, oh my gosh, I cannot, when I walk in this closet, I get so much anxiety. It's like, oh my gosh, that makes me so sad because life is challenging. We all have our challenges and you never know what's around the corner. And if we can make our home truly a sanctuary, that's why I say it's the foundation of wellness, having an organized home. It's whenever I walk into my home, I can just feel that soothing, calming feeling. And yeah, there's a little bit of maintenance that goes into keeping it that way, but it really isn't a way of life. It really is a way of setting up your home so that you can live your fullest life.
I love it. I think it's a perfect place for us to segue. All right, Heather, tell our listeners before we take our last break, where is the best place for them to learn more? Obviously, you're in Idaho, so anybody that's in the Idaho area that's looking for a professional organizer will have links for you to connect up with Heather. But for people just anywhere, how can they find you, learn more, connect up with you?
Yeah. So our website is tidystylehome.com, and on Instagram, we post daily before and after pictures of all of our projects, tips and tricks for how to stay organized. We really try to cater our Instagram to the DIY person who's looking to do this on their own, because we recognize not everyone can afford a professional organizer. And so we really want to make our Instagram a good resource for people that are looking to organize their home and keep it organized. So that's at Tidy Style Home. And then we also have a YouTube channel at Tidy Style Home as well.
Great. So we will obviously have links to all of that. So we're going to take our quick break. And then when we get back, I'm just going to do our wrap-up questions with Heather. So sit tight. All right, Heather. So you may have heard at the top of the episode, I was referencing our new Goodreads list, which we've been putting together.
So excited. Yes.
Yeah. So for the past couple of years, and this is for anybody that's new to our show, I started, I've always asked like some wrap up questions for our guests, but a couple of years ago, I started asking about book recommendations because I like being inspired by other people and finding like, what do you read? What do you listen to? And so God bless you, by the way. And so we started compiling this list and we were including it in our show notes for people. And I was selfishly going out there and buying these books and then sometimes having the authors on, and people started like DMing me and reaching out and sending us emails about, thank you so much for that book recommendation, or this was great. And then do you have a list? Do you have like a compiled list? So it took a little time because we've been doing this for a while. So we had to, corral it. We're like, we want it to be accessible for people to be able to have it like track, what are they reading? What do they want to read? And I was like, I want to do it like a Goodreads. And my assistant producer was like, well, let's just create a Goodreads list. And I was like,
oh my gosh,
brilliant. So
I'm dying to check it out. I love to read and I'm dying to check out this list.
Well, good. So on that note, is there a book that you are either loving right now, or it could be something that maybe you go back to, or that you refer to a lot of people? Like what's something that you want to share with us?
Okay, so I read a lot. I love to read, but I have to say I read solely for entertainment and escape. I do not read to better myself.
You're fiction. So you're a fiction reader. You're a fiction reader. You are like my husband. My husband only reads fiction, and I'm all nonfiction. I have to work to read fiction. So
really? You. Oh my gosh. Yeah, not me. When I have time to myself to read, I really want to escape and just like I get out of this type A mindset that I'm in, 18 hours out of every day. So it's my escape.
All right. So hit me up. Hit me up. I'm ready.
Okay. The Lincoln Highway. I just finished that book. It was a beautiful, emotional book, and I absolutely loved it. That's kind of a newer release this year.
Okay.
Amor Tools is the author.
Okay.
Then one that I read, I always bring this up because it was really one of those books that had me laughing out loud, had me crying. I was like on an absolute emotional roller coaster with this book. It was a beautiful book, but it is a long one. This Tender Land.
Oh, okay. I like the name of
Um,
it.
oh my gosh. It was like, if you read and loved Grapes of Wrath, you'll love this
That's a
Tenderland.
heavy book. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while, but this
And then
Tenderland.
on the lighter side, um, I don't know, I was very late to this party, but I discovered Ellen Hildebrand last year.
Oh yeah. Which book?
I think I've read 20 of her books in the last year. I mean, she is such a prolific writer. She has so many books out there, but they are like the most delicious escapism kind of books. If you love Nancy Meyers movies like The Holiday or It's Complicated, I
Okay.
swear you will love reading Ellen Hildebrand. They're mostly set in Nantucket, and it's just like the way she describes the scenery, the way she describes the food, the
I feel like
fashion, all of it.
I'm looking her up really quick because I feel like I have read on one of my, I'm going to dip into the fiction world. I feel
I
like
think
I've read her books, Ellen
is
Hildebrand books. Let's
the
see.
28 Summers, I think, is like one of her most popular ones, but I just find that they're just so easy. I mean, I can read one of her
Yes.
books in
Well,
2 days. And it's so fun.
we'll definitely link up to all of these things so that people can go
Okay.
because, you know, we all, like I said, we all are looking for good reads. So thank you so much. And then our last two questions that we have asked every guest, pretty much every episode since we started in 2017, which is, where in this particular season of your life do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
I I was Everybody who knows me knows that I am famous for losing my wallet, losing my keys. I'm very scatterbrained. So as far as spatial organization, it is like a must, because if I'm not spatially organized in all of my spaces, I think I would just kind of like float out into orbit. It really grounds me. And so disorganization is, my head is very disorganized. If somebody could find a way, like, okay, yes, I use my calendars, I use my reminders, I use all those things, but I am still apt to, yeah, lose my keys, lose my phone, forget an appointment. I'm very scatterbrained. So that's where I'm a hot
So
mess.
funny. So funny. Well, I will tell you a little side note, fun fact. I like lose my keys in my purse. Like I kid you not. In my house, I have a specific drop zone for my keys. So I come in and I 9 times out of 10 will put them on the little hook where they belong. I won't just, drop them, but I will be out and about and I'll be like, where are my keys? So I put them in my pocket and I put them in my purse and I'll be like at a store and I'll spend 5 minutes in the store looking for my keys. So I
Yeah.
don't lose them in my house. I lose them like when I'm out, like misplace them.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh yeah, that's me. At my house, I have a space, but literally just last week I was in Target, and I think it's partially because I'm just like a fast. I'm a go go go, and so it's hard to be really present for me. That's something I'm always working on. But I think because of that, I'm not always paying attention to what I'm actually doing. And so I had taken my keys out. They were in the cart. I was at Target. I was shopping. I left. I got out to my car. Oh no, I don't have my keys. Well, it was one of those rainy days and Target was just super packed, and I had to go through, they had to make an announcement, everyone check your cart. Luckily I had a thing on my phone to track the key, the air tag, and so I had to track it. And so I tracked it down the toy aisle. This lady's cart was beeping because my keys were in it and she hadn't
oh
seen them. But
my
like
gosh.
not an uncommon thing for me. My husband's always laughing. He's like, Heather, wallet check, key check, phone check. You have everything. It's like, oh my
See,
gosh.
we are all a little bit of a hot mess, people, right?
Yeah.
Even professional organizers, we have our moments. So
So
just
true.
so true. Well, Heather, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. I hope you guys are walking away feeling inspired to tackle your closets. I mean, again, bins, hangers, editing, all of these things. Great, great tips for any closet in your house or any space. So until next week, we'll be continuing on with our room by room series. Make sure to check it out. We also have a closet checklist download. We'll be including that in our show notes as well, with the links to Heather and all of her things. So make sure you head over to our podcast page, because there'll be links to everything that we talked about, including Heather's book recommendations. So until next week, I am Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.